you give us a explanation of what prayer is and what prayer does?
For me, prayer is the deepening of my relationship with the divine. The divine presence that some would consider to be a higher power or God, but also the divine in every other human being and every other creature and all life on this planet. And so prayer can be something that is spoken, something that is sung, something that is being silent, but being attentive and aware of the presence of the holy in all things, and that stirring within me that enables me to become more and more my true self, my best self, so that I can make a difference in the world.
Jeff?
I have no idea what to add to that personally, but I think traditionally, especially religious people, words, especially spoken and written, seem to be so important. But what Sue-Ann said is, I think the real aspect of prayer is how do we engage in a deeper relationship with the divine. And so we do that in many different ways, both of us and people around us. So I mean, last year we built one of the world's largest labyrinths outdoors, and it was so that we could engage in that relationship with God, do it silently, but also while we moved. And doing it outdoors meant that we were in touch with more of God's creation. So prayer is whatever way works for somebody to be able to make that stronger connection, and to do it in a way that will help them to be fuller people, and as Sue-Ann said, to make a positive difference in the world. So, yeah.
Okay, and just to go a little bit deeper into it, how long has prayer been around as a way of communicating with the divine?
Ever? Since the beginning?
Since before the beginning.
So before we wrote and could document, we know that prayer has been, it's a natural part.
Absolutely.
Would you say?
Absolutely, yeah.
And do you think that's what Dr. Miller means when she describes the awakened mind as our natural capacity for spiritual connection and inner knowing?
Yes, absolutely. I think that people have always felt drawn into relationship with the holy, and that people have experienced that in different ways throughout time. You know, there have been sacred dances, there has been fasting, there have been people who have, you know, gone into the wilderness and gone walkabout. There are all kinds of ways, but it is when we have that knowing, that knowing that we are part of something larger than ourselves, I think that is the essence of prayer.
Jeff?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what geographic location, what culture, what time frame, people have always related to the divine or a higher power or something bigger than themselves. And it's not because of ignorance, and it's not because of, you know, people having some kind of, you know, sense that if they don't, they're, you know, it's unlucky or something. I think it's because it is ingrained in us. It is part of our DNA. It is what this is what Lisa Miller and others have found, is we are wired for that connection, and we are only fully human when we are able to make that connection. But it doesn't have to be, I mean, you can imagine millions of years ago, assuming whatever kind of human there was, at whatever time frame, there wasn't written word. There wasn't what we would consider today to be a common form of prayer, but they were still connected. So how did they do that? Well, they did that through their natural relationship with the environment around them. So.
And how did they know?
I think there's an inner sense. I think the spirit in us connects with the greater spirit. And one of the reasons why I think that is simply, and it's an odd thing and maybe a funny thing, but when something bad happens to somebody, what do? They cry out to God. They say, God, help me. They are alone in the wilderness and they're desperate. They call out to God, even people who would say that they are atheists. And I think it's that innateness, because that's not even our brains thinking, right? That's our brain stem. That's the reptilian brain kicking in,
yes,
and reaching out for help and knowing that help is there.
Is that what the gospel is designed to do? Or actually, let's first define what the gospel is.
Mm-hmm.
How would you define it?
So
and it's a big question.
Yeah.
We've got 17 hours.
Okay. No. So gospel is good news, right? It's the good news that we are loved unconditionally and that God always wants to be in relationship with us, forgiving us and saving us from ourselves sometimes and helping us to live with goodness and compassion with all beings.
And when we refer to the Gospels, we're talking about what was written down eventually, but what was shared and proclaimed orally by generations of followers of Jesus, and then eventually written down. Because the earliest written gospel that we currently use in our Bible was at least 40 years after Jesus dies.
Yes.
And the last one could be as much as 100 years after Jesus dies. So it took a long time for those people or committees to write those books.
Yeah.
But that's what we often refer to when we're talking about the Gospels. But as Sue-Ann said, that proclamation about Jesus, it happened immediately after Jesus died. They were proclaiming Jesus orally, verbally to communities. So it starts there. Jesus is sharing the good news himself, and that is exactly what Sue-Ann said. It's the eternal, endless love of God.